ping some people into the room. We're going to be learning how to use Nomad Sculpt on the iPad, and how we can use that to do our 3D sculptures. So if you're interested in learning how to do 3D sculptures on the iPad, think of it as a sort of a pathway to something like Blender or Maya or something along those lines. If you wanted to do that, you're welcome to come up to the stage and also click on the link that will bring you into the stage. And here we go. All right. Hopefully. So yeah, we are inside of the Voxel's metaverse right now at the parcel. It's 5 Snow Fox Lounge, and you can get there by going to lexluker.com. And if you do, I would encourage you to sign in with your Ethereum wallet, and then you can join us and click on the guest book. I periodically send out wearables, and we'd love to have you get one of our wearables. Right now we are waiting for some people to get in here, but I can give you guys a tour real quick. So these are some of our wearables from me and some of my friends, some of the best wearable makers in the business, if you ask me. You can come up here and also join the Metaverse Builders Academy by clicking on subscribing to our YouTube or subscribing to our Discord. And this is an interesting project we're working on, but right now it's still in blueprint phase, so I'll give more details on it when we have a little bit more available. It's just last week's class, and working on some actual fidgetals over here. You can see that we have some fidgetals. This is some of our art from the real world. Some of it's already been sold, some of it is available for sale still. And then you can click on any of these wearables over here and purchase. Oops. Oh boy. Hold on, be right back. Technical difficulties there. 1 second. Just a couple technical difficulties here. I'm going to go ahead and womp this. Well, actually, let's not do that. Let's womp it downstairs. Oh. Let's womp it downstairs. And there we go. Nomad Sculpt Part 3. And womping just allows us to send out sort of a broadcast to everyone that how many people are in the space, and then what's going on in the space. If they click on that, they'll be able to be transported directly to the parcel, and so that's cool. And hello, somebody just popped in. How you doing? If you would like to click on the screen over by Tyrone. If you'd like to click on the screen over by Tyrone, you can join us in the class. All right. Fantastic. This keeps timing out, so I've got to figure out how to get this not to time out. But yeah, we'll be going over our Nomad Sculpt. There we go. And yeah, there we go. Yep. Well, actually, yeah, I'm in Discord, but you can join us actually in the link posted to the top of Clubhouse, because I'm streaming from my parcel. So if you click that link over by Testosterone, you'll be able to see what we're doing on the screen. Ah, gotcha. All right, hold on. Let me make sure people aren't in the room. All right. Hey, what's up, Hybrid? How you doing? Let me ping a couple more people in. Pork Chop, Dominica, Wisdom. Cool. Uh-oh. Yeah, all right, cool. Oops, that's not what we wanted. We wanted this. All right, cool. Yeah. Yeah, if you jump in voxels, you've got me open on, I think, Discord. Why am I hear myself 2-3 times. Might have to mute. Hybrid, you might, cool, thanks. All right, cool. Let's go over some of the stuff we talked about last session. Wow, that is off. That blows. All right, so just a real quick sort of brief overview about this program. This is Nomad Sculpt for the iPad, right? And it's a really cool 3D app that lets you do some interesting sort of pre-gaming depending on what you're trying to do with your 3D sculpting. A lot of people use Blender, a lot of people use Maya, some people use 3D Cinema. Now, I particularly like Nomad Sculpt because it's available to you, one, in your tablet format, which is very, very helpful. But it's also very, very approachable as a 3D application. So here, let's go ahead and get started with the new project. We'll go over some of the previous things that we talked about initially. So of course we got our project pane, and of course you can make these panels remain there by clicking on that little pin, sort of like this little push pin. But these panels, the first one, this one's your project panel. Think of this as your file menu. You've got your save, your save as, your open, your add to scene, so you can add other project files to this scene, and then your delete and your new. You can import different projects here, and then this is your interval for your project autosave, which is pretty cool. If you're bad at saving your files, which you and sometimes you might crash because you put too much geometry on the stage, so you want to make sure that you keep your auto save on. That's an important feature. And then of course you've got your export. Now when we export, we want to export as an OBJ file, and we can drop that right into our voxel Magica voxel program, which is what we use to export in order to get things into our voxels.com metaverse. All right, so down here also you have your render settings. You can export a PNG for your wearables when if you're for the 3D render of your wearable. This won't be the voxelized version of your wearable. Next you've got your scene panel, and this has all of your geometry that is in the scene at the moment. And what's really cool about it is you can see right here there's a list of all of the different geometries that are added to the scene. So if I add another piece of geometry, right here, let's go ahead and make that. There we go. So if I add another, yeah, so it's been time. They want me to save this. We're not going to save it though. So you see when I add different geometry to the scene, it all gets put here in this list, from the sphere to the cone to the cylinder. You can actually select the different geometrical primitives that you have here in the scene by clicking these little check marks. So that's definitely helpful, and it's useful. I'm gonna show you guys how to use that in a second to cut away geometry. But depending on you can select multiple geometric assets here by clicking on the check marks. You can also make them visible or invisible by clicking on the eyes, and then you can change the name by clicking on this little pencil tool, and you can move the order of it by using this up, down, left, right indicator, which is very, very helpful. Now I use this a tremendous amount. This functionality allows you to duplicate it by hitting this little duplicate function, and if your gizmo is selected, you can see, I'm just going to pinch to zoom out real quick. You can see that you've duplicated the geometry, right? Quick way to make like a quick snowman, right? Pretty simple. Okay, and so so this is your scene, and it houses your primitive panel as well. And down here, of course, you can add to your panel, your scene by adding different primitives and making different primitives available down here. And we have some pretty cool ones. Last time we went over the triplanar. We'll do a quick summary of that as well. But today we're going to go over some more of the tools over to your right. Now, your resolution. This gives you a bunch of different options, which is why it doesn't have a tab up at the top. It's your multi-resolution tab, your voxel tab, and your dynamic topography tab or topology tab, and your decimation. Excuse me. Now, I use this a lot from the multi-res point of view and from the voxel point of view, depending on what you want. When you have a primitive, though, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you validate your primitives first. So now that you're in the multi-resolution, what this does is it gives you the option to make changes to your geometry from multiple states of resolution. So from a low resolution, medium resolution, high resolution. The reason why you'd want to do this is because your tools become the efficacy of your tools. Your ability to use your tools changes at different resolution states. So adding geometry with, say, the brush or the clay tool is different when you're in a low res state versus when you're in a mid res state and a high res state. So we'll go over a little bit more as we start dealing with some of these tools that require that. But you can change your states from lower to higher resolutions. Subdivide actually adds more resolution. So if you click the subdivide, if you delete the lower, then you delete your lower states. And I think that's permanent. You can't get those back. So you'd have to re-render it at a, well, not render, you'd have to resolve it at a lower state. You can do that with this voxel section right here. So if you click on the voxel tab right up here, you can see that you can remesh your the resolution of your geometry at different states. So as I lower, you can see that the indicator over here shows that they're actually, it looks like they're getting bigger, but they're not. I'm using less voxels to render this geometry. So if I hit remesh, my multi-resolution state will be lost, and it'll resolve at a lower. So you can see this was the copy that we had selected. It's smooth. It's at a higher resolution state. Now that we remeshed this at a lower voxel resolution state. If you guys are in the Discord, feel free to just go to lexluker.com. I'm streaming on YouTube Live, and it'll probably be better to view it from within there. All right, cool. So you can see this one I've remeshed. It looks kind of like a golf ball, whereas this one still looks nice and smooth like a bowling ball, right? So that's the power of the voxel. Now the dynamic topology, I don't really use that for right now. So I don't use it to do any of the sculpting that I do right now. As I get a better understanding, I'll come back and talk about it. Same thing with decimation. So for right now, I really just use this for the multi-res and the voxel tabs. Now the materials, don't use that for the most part either. The matte cap, is the matte cap in here? Yeah, if you change, like if you're painting in here, I paint in Voxel Edit and in Magica Voxel, so I don't do a lot of painting actually in here. If I wanted to do some painting, I probably would export this as an OBJ to my Procreate and then paint in Procreate. So I don't use the material a lot, but you can actually benefit from using the material if you want to do some scenes in Nomad Sculpt. I use the matte caps, and the matte caps are helpful for determining the geometry. You can just quickly apply different material settings to your geometry. It'll give you an ability to sort of visualize it from a different perspective using different lighting quickly. That's why I like the matte cap. And you can see which one's highlighted because the other ones are a little bit darker. So I use the matte caps. I don't use post-process. Again, I'm not here to render natively here. I'm here to learn how to sculpt in this program for the most part. So if you have a reference image or a background image, you can actually bring it in here and use it here. So you can import your reference image if you're trying to build something like a mansion or something. Or if you're trying to use a background image. And then you can save your camera views. So say I like this view, I can actually come in here and add the view here, and then if I wanted to get back to it, I could just click on it and it'll bring me back to it. So you can save your views inside of the view. So that's the view tab. So those are the panels over on the left side. And let's go back to our scene. And one of the things about all the primitives that we import into the scene, right now I'm using the gizmo tool to make changes. That's the gizmo tool over here. You can see over here in the corner, the right corner. I'm using the gizmo tool. Now you have to validate it before you can actually make changes to it from a voxel point of view, right? So everything that we're changing right now is just transforming the geometry. But if we wanted to get into the actual faces and edges and such, we'd have to click on this validate section. Now what's cool about this is you can also, so you'll see how I can change the size of this particular primitive. Yeah, let's just start off with the cylinder and work our way through real quick. So we'll work our way through the primitives, and then we'll get into some of the other tools. I think I mentioned last time we'll be going over the lathe tool, but let's just go through the primitives really quickly. All of these options, when you click on them initially, they start out with this sort of disengaged white icon. When you click on it, you can enable that, and it turns orange or whatever color you have selected. So I can select the height of this cylinder because I have the edit mode engaged up here at the top. Now the radius also works the same way. So you can have one radius which determines the radius for the whole cylinder, which is this yellow dot, or you can have it multi-radii, which would make the top
smaller, and you can actually make it a cylinder of various different shades. So you can make like a nightshade or a lampshade or something interesting, like that. Also, if you want to engage the whole function, now you can make it the cylinder into actual nightshade, a lampshade. I'm sorry, by engaging the whole function, and you can change the diameter of the hole with this blue indicator for the top and for the bottom. So you can make it wide up at top and then, small at the bottom. Interesting. Okay. And of course, you can hit the mirror function, and when you hit the mirror, depending on where you place it with the gizmo, it will actually create a mirrored copy based on your mirror settings. So you can set your mirror to be global or local, and we went over that, I think, in part 1. But quickly, there's a scene, there's a middle of the scene, and then there's a middle of the object you have selected. So right now, the mirroring section is being mirrored according to a line drawn in the middle of the scene. You can see how I'm sort of transposing past it, and that's where the mirror is relying on. So if I like this and I want to keep the mirrored version, I click validate, and now you can see that these copies still interact with each other even though they're validated, and what I do to one I do to the other. See? Alright. So you can create some interesting geometry using the mirror function. Alright, so that's the cylinder primitive. Now most of these primitives operate under a similar function, right? So if we come to our right view, same thing with this one. The edit functions are available to you. When you click on the edit, you can do the mirror, the validate, same thing. So the cone. Now let's start with the box as well. Let's bring a box in here. Now the box is interesting because what? 1 second. Broadcasting. Sorry about that. So you can actually change the curves on a box depending on what you're interested in, using the parameter and the box topology. So if you change this into subdivisions, and you change the box topology, you can actually give yourself curves. And now this works on most of, with the constant density, you don't have to make changes for the X, the Y, and the Z, but you can make changes for the X, the Y, and the Z, and actually give yourself some really cool topology. So for instance, the division on the top is flat, right? But the curves on the Y axis make it really, really curved, right? So that's really cool. Same thing with the Z function. So you can make some really interesting changes to the geometry of your box. Right? Alright, cool. And that's inside of the scene, and this is primitive. Right. There you go. So you can make some, you can bring it all the way down, and then you can add, of course, go back and add, with a subdivide, you can go back and add a change to it. Alright, so that's the box. Now, if we, it's pretty much the same thing for the rest of them, the torus, the cone, the sphere, UV sphere, the plane, the icosahedron is interesting as well, and you can make your I don't know that if you can make this actually Yeah, this just changes the radius. All right, yeah, you have to make these changes to the post division of the parameters and the oh, this says keep triangles. That's what it is. All right. Yeah. Yeah. So some of the settings are keeping you from making it fluffy. I think there should be a way to do it, but I'll check it out and let you guys know next time. So yeah. So using the gizmo, you can make translation, transformations. If you guys have any questions, please post it in the chat. Hey, Forte. How are you, darling? We got Forte Gray here. She makes all of the classes. Super happy to have her here and have her support. If you click the screen over by Tyrone Forte, then that's where we are. We don't have the classroom setting today. I felt like keeping it here, keeping it funky. But we are broadcasting. So if you click on the screen, actually, I probably should. Oh, there we go. Invite you to the stage. There we go. And there we go. All right, cool. Hey, nice to hear you, darling. Yeah, we're just kind of getting started. I'm going over the basics of the of Nomad Sculpt, and I think we're gonna go over some more. Probably gonna just do an hour today, but yeah. So if you click on the screen over by Tyrone, you'll be able to see. Yeah. All right, and so that's pretty much most of the primitives. Now we did have a really cool primitive that we were going over last time in class. It's the triplanar primitive, and the triplanar primitive is very interesting. Actually, hold on, let me solo this. All right. Now the way the triplanar primitive works, oops. I'm gonna delete this and then just bring in another one. Here we go. And go to front. There we go. And triplanar. There we go. And there we go. All right, so the way the triplanar primitive works is it uses whatever information is drawn on three 2D planes, okay? The back, the right, and the bottom. It uses that information to create the geometry. So I'm gonna show you what I mean. Right now you can see there's a circle, and a circle on the back. This is the back, this is the right, and this is the bottom, right? So if I make changes, and the way I can make changes is by either drawing and adding geometry to, and you can see it updates automatically by either adding geometry or hitting unmask over here under the bar, and I can remove geometry that way. And because I have my symmetry mode selected, it's making those changes on both sides of this. But if I don't want that to happen, I can click on this little symmetry bar and only draw on one side, right? So I can affect this primitive or this this shape basically by drawing an image. In fact, what we're gonna do is let's just get rid of everything here, and you can see when it includes the come on, there we go. When it includes the other the other planes, you can see that, you know, how it changes. So hold on, let's go back to this. All right. So we're gonna change it to unmask mode, and we're gonna draw an F for Forte. And you can see how the geometry is changed. Now when we switch it to the bottom, right? When we switch it to the bottom, you can see how. Does this make sense? Whatever you draw onto the whatever you draw onto these planes is the blue, the green, and I mean blue, gray, pink. Yeah, it's a matte cap. So you can change the matte cap shading right here. It's one of these panels. So right here, the shading is next to the material, which is next to the primitive scene. So 1, 2, yeah. So project is first, and then you got, yeah. So matte cap is in the shading. I like it too. Yeah. Yeah. I'm using the. I know, right? I'm using the. I don't have any music that's DMCA friendly. At some point, I want this to be monetized. I need people's permission. Maybe since maybe you could give me some music one of these days. Give me some permission to use some music one of these days. Some of your stuff. Cool. All right, so we've got our really cool F, right? And there we go. So once we have it set up, right? That's interesting. Oh, cool. Yeah, so this, again, all of these functions are engaged when they're orange. So you can actually make changes to the triplanar settings of the background by using this edit function, right? So depending on what you need, like how big you need this primitive to be, if you're in gizmo mode and you use this edit function right here, this orange piece. And what's also cool is you can mirror according. So I could create, like if I made these into wings, I could actually create this by hitting this mirror section. It will mirror whatever geometry I do with this. So you can create your geometry using this triplanar, and then when you hit validate, you'll see how now I have the two pieces there. And what I do to one is reflected in the other. Oh, they're stuck. I didn't realize they were going to be stuck together. That's cool. All right. Yeah. So that's the triplanar primitive. It's the kind of the more advanced one. Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. Unmirror. Validate. Alright, cool. So once we have our geometry there, we can play around with the resolution settings, right? If we wanted to, you could see as we zoom in, you start to see the individual faces, and you can see what the mesh is set up at already by going to the multi-resolution tab and then clicking on voxel. You can see that our resolution is set to 196. If I wanted to make that better, finer, I could remesh it at a higher level and then hit remesh, and you can see doesn't have a huge impact on it, but you definitely can see that, you know, you'd have to zoom in a lot farther before you start seeing a lot of individual faces. And you can smooth that as well. So that's not the best way to add geometry, is to remesh. You don't necessarily want to do it that way. The way that you want to do it is you want to come to multi-resolution and hit subdivide. And subdivide will give you, it'll add geometry fairly. It'll divide it. It'll subdivide all the geometry you have by, I think, 4. So that's what you want to do. Now, all right, we went over the primitives. We went over the, oh yeah, let's do that real quick. Let's go over the lathe, because we mentioned we were going to do lathe last time. We went over a lot of these different tools over here in this tool set. Typically it looks like this over as a toolbar, and you have to scroll through it, but if you click that little wrench icon, it'll bring it all up, all of the tools up for you here. And I'm going to unpin that scene. And here we go. So yeah, we talked about the gizmo. The gizmo is pretty easy to understand. You can move everything around at once using this middle section, the orange section. Now, anything that's kind of tan orange, this little, it's sort of the uniform move, uniform scale. So I can move everything all at once. I can scale everything from all 3 dimensions, X, Y, Z, or I can start, you know, scaling on individual axes. So the X, the Y, and the Z, or Z, as some of my international fans say. The Z. Alright, and so now that we have kind of what we want, that's the gizmo tool. The clay tool, they have these 2 tools that sort of, all right, so one actually adds geometry, whereas the other one manipulates the geometry that's already there. So one's kind of destructive. So like if you add geometry with the clay tool, you can see it's added the geometry there, but it's added information. Those are new faces per se, right? Versus the brush tool, which sort of just maneuvers what's already there, right? You see what I'm saying? And both those tools kind of work in that way. So again, here's the clay tool, and we'll take up the intensity, right? This is the clay tool, right? And then this is the brush tool. You see the difference? Oh, sorry. Let me add up the intensity again. Yeah. So and most of these tools have that kind of impact as well. So like crease versus drag versus move. Now yours might not look like this because I've moved some of my icons around. I put crease up at the top because I use it so often, but it was actually it might not look the same. But the drag versus move tool, right? You can drag geometry versus moving it, right? It's the same sort of function. And sometimes you'll want to add geometry. Sometimes you'll want to move the geometry that exists, right? Get this hickey off your F. So if we go to crease, you can see how the crease tool. Oh, let me make this 100%. Now you'll notice the intensity can go above 100%. If you look at this number, you see how it goes to 100, and then it looks like it's not getting any more intense. But watch the number. The number actually increases well above 100%. We're at 800% almost. So don't be fooled by that. And so if I increase the radius size, I can make a nice sort of oh. And you really have to use all these tools to get them to get a good idea of on how they function. But you can kind of see if I try to go over some of these lines, depending on how much pinch and how much intensity there it is, you might end up with the line you want, you might not. So it's just about playing with it. Yep. Oh, that looks gnarly. It's not what we wanted. Oof. Alright, so cool. So that's the crease tool. The drag and move again, depending on the size of your brush. You can see the amount of area that's impacted. You want to get used to using this on a global level and also on a minute level, right? All right. That's a move, drag. Mask. Oh, smooth. Smooth obviously needs to make sense. The smooth tool is actually located inside of this little sidebar, and depending on how intense it is, the smooth tool is located in here for a lot of these. So you see how I have the brush tool selected? I can actually come down here and hit this smooth tool right here, and it's right here in the bar for me, depending on what the settings are set to as well. It's the same thing with the mask. So if I click on this mask section right here, I can, oh, what is the mask setting set to? Why is that? Oh, it's set to unmask. Okay, which is erase. Right, so the smooth and mask tools are all right here in the side section. And then what you'll notice is whatever I have masked, when I try to manipulate it, it'll move everything. Oops. It'll move everything except for what I masked. See how that works? Alright, so the smooth, unmasked, smooth, all of that's right here available inside of your right here available right inside of your left bar. Now, mask is interesting. When you click on these tools, by the way, you'll see that over here, right above, I can't show you my indicators, but on the right bar, notice what changes when I change tools. That first little icon is the settings menu for whatever tool you have selected. So if I have the mask tool selected and I go up to this settings right here, see the little indicator that turned orange? If I click on that settings, that's all the settings for the tool that I have selected right now. So I can clear my mask, and now I have nothing selected, right? So let me come back in here and select something else, right? Come back into my settings. I can invert what I have selected, right? So I can invert it. I can blur it so that it's more diffused. I can sharpen it, right? So that it sticks more to the geometry. And you can see what you actually select is what you mask. You don't interact with. What remains unmasked is what you interact with. You see? So let's say, yeah, I didn't like that. Let's go back to pick the mask tool, and then I'm saying, okay, that's too jagged. Let's hit blur a bunch of times, and now let's pick the gizmo tool and let's move that out, right? Now it's a Did I make you a moderator? I did not make you a moderator. Dennis, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Thank you, darling. All right. And so, yeah, so blur actually helps you out a lot when you're using your masking tools. Um, and then again, blur, sharpen. You can clear what you have selected as well. Then you just probably want to come here with the smooth tool, smooth that down a little bit, right? But you can see how you can make some interesting geometry with just some of these tools. And you want to see what your smooth setting is too. If your smooth is really intense, it'll give you like a lot more smoothing, but it will distort whatever geometry you have there. So you see how I lost that definition right there? There was a little cleft right there, and then I just smoothed it on out. Yeah, so you want to be careful with the smooth tool and the intensity that you have set to your smooth tool. That's with all these tools for the most part, but yeah. All right, so select mask is also really cool. So you see the difference between the mask tool gives me this option for brush size over here on the left and intensity, because I'm going to be in here brushing it. If I have my symmetry tool on, you see how well, depends on where the symmetry is set. Let's see, where's the front? Okay, there's the front. Oh, I guess we're off of the local symmetry. Let's deal with symmetry. We'll deal with symmetry in a second. But yeah, so you can see that with the mask tool, it has me just mask using the brush. Let me clear that. If I go to select mask, right, it gives me a whole different option over here. So I can create a mask using this lasso now. You see? See how that works? Or polygon. I don't really like using polygon as much, but you can do like a polygon selection. If you tap these points, you can make them curves, or you can make them corners. And then once you're done, you hit the green bar, and you can use a polygon to make selections. Or what's really cool, and this is what I use a lot, if I need a straight line, you click on the line, and then wherever you put your cursor, or wherever you lay down your point of your stylus, that's where the line is going to start. And so you put down the line, and then you can make, you can turn it this way, and you can see that whatever falls inside or under that line is selected. So you can make, selections like this if I wanted just that part of it. See? So you can make lines and change your selection like that with the line. Rectangle, ellipse, all of these, same difference, right? Same difference. They're just using different geometry, right? So that's how you can make your selections. And then, of course, you can, again, whatever's not selected, or whatever's not selected is subject to whatever changes you make. So if I then come in here with my brush tool, you see how I'm only brushing on top of what is not selected. See? So your selection tool allows you to isolate geometry here, right? Now trim works different. Let's deselect. Oops. Let's clear that. All right. We're gonna undo this. If you go to lexluker.com, you'll drop down in my parcel. And if you drop down in my parcel, you see a bunch of YouTube icons or buttons. They're all over the place. Just click on one and you can go ahead and subscribe, and it'll take you right to my channel where you can subscribe and watch. So that's how to find me on YouTube. But you could also do a search for my name, Lex Lucre, 2 X's, LEXX space LUCRE. Yeah. And so the trim It works very much like the line, but it gives you a straight line based on where you put your line, right? So if you need that to be flat across the back, that's how you use the trim function. And it'll just basically trim off that section for you. You could also use the lasso to trim, right? So, it doesn't have to be the line, but I typically use the line. If you need it to be straight, you could also use the rectangle. See? Bam, bam, bam. Smudge is a paint function. I don't use paint all that much yet. Flatten lets you flatten, but it doesn't do the job that trim does. So look, so this is like it flattens it off, but it's not like line flat, like, you know what I mean? It sort of flattens what you have there according to what you have there. See, I'm flattening it, but it's not flat like a straight line. You see what I'm saying? So you'll want to set the intensity and the changes in there to suit you. Layer. Okay. Let's see. Layer, split, project. I don't use those so much. I can go over layers though. Layers are interesting, but let's keep going over these tools real quick. Inflate is like the opposite of flatten. Pinch does what you would expect pinch to do. Hold on, let's turn it. Yeah, just sort of pinches according to that line. Nudge, again, I think that's paint related. So paint, nudge, stamp, don't really use those. Delete layer, don't really use that. Tube, we definitely use tube. So tube is really interesting. I use the curve a lot, but you can use the path. And you can set it up to be a closed tube by clicking on this little icon over here. But you draw your tubey tube the way you want it. Now what's cool about this is these Bezier points. You can drag one and drop it on another, and that's how you delete the point. Okay? So you can get rid of the points if you want. You can pull them. If you click on the point, you'll turn them into corners. And if they're curved, they're white. If they're corners, they're black, right? And you can add more by just clicking on the line. So if you need that if you need that curve to curve, like really curve, you can just add more curves to it, more points, and make it curve the way you want it to. Now, the tube is very interesting because you can see, again, we have all these interesting options available. For instance, hole. If you make it a hole, you can set how the diameter of the hole on the inside, right? See? And it becomes a tube. Or you can keep it closed by having that not selected. With the one radius set right here, the one radius dot engaged, I can set the entire diameter of the whole tube at once, right? But if I tap on this so that it's 2, I could set one side and I could set the other side. I can get it from start to finish. It changes. If I click it one more time, I've got multiple radii points based on every single dot that I have, right? So every single dot that I have has its own thickness, wire thickness sort of indicator, right? So you can make it whatever you want. Yep. You can make it close itself by clicking on that, and you can actually make it snap. So if you click snap and then you bring one of these over to another geometry, it'll snap to the geometry that exists. So if, like, say you were doing wiring on top of some geometry and you need it to snap, it'll snap to the geometry and stay on it, right?
What happened? My screen switched. You don't see what? Am I am I still in Nomad Sculpt or? Oh wow. I see it on Tyrone's screen. It's still updating. Maybe hit me with a refresh. While you do that, let me check to make sure nobody else is in Clubhouse. Obey. Adria, welcome. MM, what's up? How you guys doing? Entrez-vous, you entrees, you. Not much longer. We started on time, and I went over most of the tools and the panels again. We're gonna go over lathe just a little bit, but huh? Yeah, I'm gonna grab some food and then, but yeah, I'll definitely be back on. I can leave I could keep the stream up. Okay, most def. That sounds like fun. Yeah, we won't be on too much longer. Maybe 15 minutes more, and then I'll grab some food and then I'll be back. Sweet. So that is the tube. Again, you have the mirror, and then spline lets you change the way that these interact. So if you really needed to make it a curve, you can use the spline function to make the curve really curve. Make that thing. It ain't thangin' sometimes without using the spline. So if you want to make the thing really thing, you gotta hit the spline thing. All right, yeah. And of course you can validate. So that's how you can create some tube geometry. Think fingers, think wiring, hair. Also, you can create a lot of really interesting geometry with hair using the tube. Now, this is what we were promising for most of the evening. The lathe function. The lathe function is actually really, really cool. And what I'm using to create some of the volumetric websites we are going to be generating. Think of the lathe as a profile that you revolve into like a potter's wheel. Think of a potter's wheel. That's what a lathe is almost, right? So you know how if you put a lump of clay on a potter's wheel and it starts spinning, you use your fingers, you apply pressure with your finger and you sort of press the clay in. It as it spins, it will sort of the whole shape will get thinner according to how much pressure you place. It's the same way it works here with the lathe tool. So you can see I have the lathe tool selected over here in the menu. I'm going to go to curve because I like curve better than path. And you can see here in the middle of the screen where the revolution is going to take place. It will not be televised, but it is on my screen right now. You see how it's sitting there in the middle? You can actually start drawing your curve from around that point, and whatever you draw will get revolved, right? Does that make sense? You got my screen again? Cool. Sweet. All right. So if you take that middle point, that first point out, you can actually make changes using these dots. Again, you can get rid of them by dragging them on each other. Make them fight for their turf. I'm just kidding. Mm-hmm.
And so this is the lathe tool. You can actually revolve it 360 degrees. I think you can, if you click on hole, then what'll happen is it'll open up the middle for you. Hold on. But the problem is, I think the middle is actually, wait. Oh, yeah, take it off. Come on. Oh, you gotta have it on edit. All right, cool. Take that whole part off. There we go. All right, you can see now. Yeah, when you set it to whole, you can't really change that first dot. So you want to take it off of whole, and then you can change that first dot. And then clicking on whole will actually make the whole thing, it'll make it into a container versus having all the volume filled in on the inside. So you can make a hookah. This is how you make a hookah, y'all. Alright, yeah. So that's the lathe tool. And then I think, yeah, spline. There was, oh, no. That's Taurus. Oh, yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is the lathe tool. And I think they had a way for you to, yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up, because I think they had a way for you to not make it go all the way 360 degrees. But as soon as I figure that out, I will let you know. Yeah. Alright, and then once it's done, you hit validate, and now it's geometric data, just like everything else. So you can come in here with the brush tool, hit subtract, start removing data, yada yada yada, etc., 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 etc. Yep. Now, if you, let's say I wanted to make a door, right, for that space, and I wanted the door to be a circle, right? I can just bring in, where's this sphere? There we go. I can bring in that sphere, make it the size that I need it to be, right? And then make sure it's colliding with the geometry where I want it to be, right? That's where I want the door to be. Then I can actually turn it off in the scene, turn off the visibility, but leave it checked. And then make sure I check the other geometry that I want it to interact with. And you can see, because I have it selected, I can't see it, but I see this sort of checkered pattern thing. You see this sort of checkered pattern that's taking right there where the sphere is supposed to be. So now if I go into the scene panel, and I have both of these items checked, but one of them's visible and one of them's not, if I hit voxel merge, what will happen is it will, that's not what I wanted. Alright, hold on. Oh, there we go. Hold on. Yeah, let's, I know, right? Alright, hold on. So yeah, there, okay, there's the sphere, right? So I select the lathe and the oh, let me turn off these other ones. I select the lathe and the sphere, and I hit voxel merge, and it does what it's not supposed to do. I have no idea why it's doing this. Yeah, it's interacting with a whole bunch of other data. Let me see. Let me move this up here. Try it again. Interesting. Not funny though. Here, let's try something else. Maybe the lathe is why it's acting weird like that. Oh no, no, I haven't created any NFTs here yet, or minted anything that I've created here. I've used it primarily just for sculpting, in Magic of Voxel, right? So let's try this. Let's just add a sphere. All right, there we go. And we're gonna turn the sphere off, and we're gonna select the triplanar, and we're gonna do the right thing. Hit voxel merge, and then all right, there you go. You see how the cylinder cut out? It cut out a cylinder size shape out of the F. You see? So that's how you cut stuff out. Cool. Righteous. Forte, you're the best. I just want you to know that. You're the best. Thanks for... Yeah. You're the best. So dope. Right. Super sick. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. You can turn on the wireframe by this little bar down here at the bottom. You can see the individual voxels and faces and edges down here at the bottom. Turn the mask on and off. You can solo different items. So change it from perspective mode to orthographic mode, which is a lot easier to build in, because perspective mode makes it like sort of go off in the distance versus orthographic mode down here at the bottom. Yep. Your undo, your redo. And so when you're ready to export, for instance, you go over here to your you want to make sure that, I think what happens is all of the stuff that you don't want, you got to get rid of it. So you got to delete all this other stuff, because it'll actually export all of this. But you get all the data that you have in your scene together, right? And make sure it's visible, and then you come over here to export. You change it to OBJ, and then you hit export OBJ, and from there you can actually send it to wherever you need to send it, right? I save it to my drive, and then once I save it to my drive, you can drop it into your scene in magical voxels like this. This was a lathe that I had created earlier, and just dropped here into magical voxels. So yeah, you gotta recolor it. Yep, it's all one color. Yep. So painting it, that's why I don't paint it in there. You know what I mean? I don't really like to paint it in there if I can help it. Yeah. And so, this is going to be like an environment pod where people are going to hang out inside of it and stuff. Once I get it looking right the way it's supposed to. It's a little funky right now, because when I brought it in, it was tilted, and that's no bueno. So we're going to re-export it and bring it back in. But any questions, anybody? Before I go grab some grub. Appreciate you guys rocking with me. You're the best, Forte. And oh man, y'all didn't tell me I didn't have the sexy lighting going. I'm supposed to have the sexy lighting going. Welcome, Anonymous Soul. Poor Anonymous Soul. No drip. What a drab. Alright, well, I thoroughly appreciate everybody in attendance, everybody who showed up.
And if you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments or send them to me at lexluker@gmail.com. But as for right now,